Tasha,
Hey, what's up?
Wagwan sister.
Oh,
You all right?
yeah. Just trying to wind down my day, but also I still got things to do. So.
What? Why didn't you come to wine culture?
Oh, I had school.
Okay. What are you doing?
I'm in this Harvard Business School program through my job.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh. That thing.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
I couldn't get away. So I hated that I missed it because it looked like it was fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. We missed you.
Yeah. Hey Ben.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
Looks like this Kyle is coming in now. So I'll probably wait until maybe about five after. Hi,
Yeah.
Kyle.
Okay.
How are you?
Muted. Hey, how you doing?
Good, good. Um, I was just saying that I'll probably wait till about five after. We've got about 45 that signed up for tonight. So
Damn.
people will probably be kind of rolling in um, between five and 10 after, but we'll start about five after, and then I'll just kind of keep an eye on the waiting room and let people in.
All good. We had an open house at work today
Oh, really? How
for
that
the culture. Went well.
good?
Went well. We launched our employee resource groups, six of them. Well, four more plus the two.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's pretty solid engagement.
Nice.
Pretty solid engagement. What are
Good.
you doing at Harvard Business? What are you studying?
So it's
Like, what's your focus?
it's a leadership course just on
Yeah,
basically,
okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it is women in leadership, and then the other half is just leadership in general. And just studying case studies about other
Okay.
organizational structures that have, because a lot of companies now are kind of changing their leadership style. I think a lot of them are trying to hold on to the old guard, but are being forced to, pivot and be
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more creative and innovative when it comes to, um, that old philosophy of people should just be happy to have a job. We don't live in that world anymore.
Yeah,
So it's
right.
kind of talking about that, talking about culture. How do you establish culture? How do you get people to buy
Mm-hmm.
in culture? All of those things. So it's pretty cool.
Good. You
Are
feel
there
like you're
people
getting a
of
lot out of
color?
it?
Say that one more time.
Go ahead, Kyle.
No, I was saying, are there people of color teaching the courses, or is it like
Actually, so we just started, so I don't have all of
Hmm.
our professors just yet.
okay,
Because they're kind of doing it in pods. Um, but it looks like from the prospectus, at least two or three um, look like they may be professors from the continent. So that'd be cool.
So,
Um, got people
what's
wrote.
up, good people?
Yeah, we should have some lively discussion tonight.
Yes.
All right, guys. So we welcome everyone to our session two of our How Wine Works um, session. And I want to, just for anyone who did not attend our first program meeting with you guys, can you just give like a really quick introduction of yourselves?
Ben, you got it?
Of course,
Your
of
name
course.
falls first in the alphabet.
All right, so good evening, everybody. My name is Ben Brandon. So I am the Director of Supply Chain Solutions and Analytics for Total Wine. What that entails is really kind of my team builds out a lot of different tools, reporting, analytics for all the different supply chain functions. So transportation, logistics, well, our warehousing functions, and then we also support kind of other areas of the business as well in partnership. So store operations, merchandising. So good, get a good opportunity to kind of work around Total Wine with a lot of different areas of the business, kind of share our expertise, provide insights through analytics. And of course, I got the opportunity as well to work with Dwight and Kyle as part of our Noir or African American ERG at Total Wine. And so, yeah, been with the company about 2 years. Hail from North Carolina, went to A&T. And so I'll pass it on over to the next letter in the alphabet, Mr. Dwight.
What's going on, good people? Dwight File. I'm the head of DEI and culture at Total. Been here right around 2 years, like Ben. Really focus on employee listening, all things related to culture, all things related to DEI, standing up ERGs, ensuring that everyone feels valued, seen, and heard at our company. Participate in a lot of cross-functional work with Kyle and Ben in terms of marketing campaigns and merchandising campaigns. But yeah, pleasure to be with you again this evening. Kyle.
Good evening, folks. Good evening, folks. Kyle Suggs, Director of Marketing Operations and Project Management at Total Wine and More. I've been with the company for 10 years in December. My team basically acts as a liaison between anybody requesting creative services and the creative team. So any projects that come in that require creative work, kind of managing those projects from brief creation through end user, be that print, in-store signage, email, web, social media. My team also kind of manages some of the marketing systems, so tools used to produce some of the work, and any kind of other ad hoc requests of the marketing team. As been mentioned, co-chair of Noir, the Black ERG. That's been in existence for about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. Yeah, Silver Spring native, spent 15 years in Atlanta, and been back home, like I said, almost 10 years now. So I'm glad to be with you guys again this evening.
Thank you. And thank you guys again. We're so appreciative of you guys coming out and just sharing your knowledge and experience with us. So we're going to dive right in. Our first session was kind of a broader topic, and we want to narrow the topic down a little bit more to personal branding and networking. And so we spoke a lot about networking last time. So we're going to start off with personal branding. And I just wanted to get the discussion started from your perspective. Just kind of explain a little bit of what personal branding is and why it's important when we talk about the corporate space or even the entrepreneurial space. Anybody want to go first?
I can kick it off. I guess to me, personal branding. You mentioned, whether it's in the entrepreneurial space, as a business owner, or marketing yourself as your skill sets. I think personal branding is what sets you apart from the noise in that space of applications or LinkedIn invites. Everybody may have project management skills, right? But what are the highlights in your career or the things that you do uniquely well? And how do you highlight those, demonstrate those, in a 30-second elevator pitch? I think personal branding is also, your unique personality. Some people are more, reserved, some people are more outgoing. I think what I've learned probably, I don't know, maybe in the last 10 years, but definitely probably since 2020 is showing up as your authentic self, being in a space or in a workspace that you feel comfortable in, so that you can perform to your best abilities, right? So you're not worried about putting on that mask or putting on that facade of, who you are. I think also kind of the you know getting over that fear of flying or that fear of success, being able to put yourself out there, and be confident in your skill sets, again, and that goes to being able to put those things on a piece of paper, demonstrate them to kind of get those first introductions going, and just taking those chances. So just kind of off the top of my head, that's kind of how I view it, but take it to others.
Sure thing. I can jump in here. I will start with I'm not the marketing person, right, on this call. So when it comes to having an understanding of personal branding, I really have a little bit more of experience on the opposite end of that, right, and kind of experience without like focusing on personal branding, right? And I think that really brought to light the importance of it. I think as I've kind of switched over to start to focus on that over the past really year and a half, the things that it has done, ways that it has benefited me, right, is that there feels like there's some form of a weight, right, to my name, and when especially in like kind of my own professional setting, meaning that as others hear my name within the building, they understand kind of what I bring to the table. And that's just kind of done. I've been very much so through just showing in terms of like the way that I've kind of I'll say performing, right? And so letting my work speak for itself is kind of like my personal brand, along with being very associate development focused. And I think that's one of the other things that if I'm not there, I think others would also echo. And so it's almost like, what do you want others to say about you when you're not there? And that's kind of the way that I've approached it.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things about, having a personal brand is knowing where to show up and when, and being as consistent as you possibly can. I think there are a lot of times where, you feel a little more confident, and you don't take, as many risks as you may need to, or not confident. You don't feel as confident. You don't take as many risks as you feel like you need to. But I think one of the best things that you could possibly do is be as consistent as possible, and then set a goal. Right, when you show up in a space and you're in a conference, you're in a summit, you're in a networking event, you know what you want to get out of that conference, you know what you want to get out of network, you know who you want to identify to talk to, and you could share, who you are, um, flat out being transparent, let them know what your needs are, and just leading in to that.
Right. And I think sometimes it's a difficult topic to understand, because I think sometimes people make it a little bit more complicated, because it's such a fancy sounding terminology, personal branding. But I think it's things that we already do every day in our professional lives. You're already wanting to present yourself in the best possible light. Ben, like you said, making sure that your work speaks for itself. It's just that when you think about personal branding, I think of it being a little just more intentional about what you want people to recognize you as and see you, and what you want to represent in that business space, when you're meeting people or being introduced to people, or also, connected to networking when other people talk about you. you want to establish your personal brand so they can also amplify and highlight the things that are your strengths and the things that you bring to the table. So I think that we all do it to some degree, but I think when you really understand the foundation of personal branding, um, you can be a little bit more intentional about it. So I want to talk a little bit more about the reasons why it's important and the value that you all have either experienced or believe that's brought in just being intentional about that personal branding.
So I can actually speak to, at least as it relates to kind of the professional environment, right? Like my brand for being somewhat of a not as well of a connector as Dwight, but somebody that can connect people, but also can focus on development and kind of lead a group. I think that kind of got me into a lot of the different committees and such, which really helps to expand, right, my network, kind of like you were alluding to there. And so the other benefit has been, once you've spent the time to develop that personal brand, I think it really helps you have some form of a compass to kind of fall back on and say like, hey, how do I? It kind of can drive your actions in different decisions, really, so that you can always stay true to that brand, right?
Right.
And so it kind of gives you a sticking point, so to speak, to kind of make sure that you're always staying true to that.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think sometimes people confuse being consistent with being static.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a difference between consistency and being static. I think being consistent is also dynamic and it's evolving. And I think you have to consistently be hip to the times and adapt and be agile to the space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can speak to it from and I know we'll probably get more into this in a little bit, but from a hiring perspective, or from when I'm working with a designer, or I'm looking for a designer to work on a particular project. Again, those things that as I'm sifting through something and I'm like, oh wait, this is different, or this is unique. Let me go read into this more. Let me go dive into this portfolio a little bit more. I think what Ben mentioned about having other people like mention your name in those rooms or in those spaces that you're not there. I think that is paramount. I think in terms of like you're leaving that mark, and um you know you're establishing yourself as that go-to person for something. um and so I think I think the things that, again, like I said before, make you stand out from the everyday, or that pile of resumes, or that pile of people to work with, um are those things that are
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I know that I feel like personal branding is one of the ways in this world of where we don't always feel like we have a lot of control over things in the workspace. I think that personal branding is one of the things that we can kind of feel a sense of ownership and control over. Um, Another interesting point that I heard recently, I was reading, I can't remember the actual statistic, but they were talking about how many venture capitalists and people who are investing in new companies, and this applies to, we have a lot of people who are either have wine brands or are interested in wine brands, or just entrepreneurs. Now they often are making choices to invest in people. It's kind of like now it's kind of like the NBA. Everybody's good. Everybody's smart. Everybody's sharp. Everybody, has a great business plan. So really how you present yourself and what you represent when you're in that pitch is really what is moving the needle from people deciding to invest in one, new venture versus another. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think people have to do their research as well. I always appreciate when a prospective employee or team member comes up and they know what they're talking about. They know Total Wine, they know DEI, they know culture, they know people, and they come to, the table with a solution, right? Or a problem and a solution to that problem. And I think, that goes a really long way. It shows vision, it shows ambition, and effort, and it shows a real value to the business. And we're about driving sales in alcohol, obviously, but also driving representation. And I think it's super important to have like a bird's eye view on things, be able to zoom out. If you do a store visit before coming in, to our doors to meet with a hiring manager, I think that shows a significant amount. So always be thinking about the bigger picture.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, I think, kind of one of the things you mentioned is making sure that you can somehow set yourself apart, right? And that is something I think that applies both professionally, and you also asked about kind of the realm of entrepreneurship. We had an event, what was it, on Juneteenth, right, at the Total Wine office here in Bethesda. And one of the things that I noticed is that as people were going, we had 11 different suppliers come in. And one of the things that was consistent is as you went from table to table to table, you just heard different stories, right? All of those stories were kind of, they resonated with people. And really, if you go into our stores and so on and so, like, that's really what is going to drive people. Like you said, brands are getting businesses are getting a lot better when it comes to the juice, right? And so, not to say everything is great, but at least a lot of the sales come from being able to sell that story. And I think the same thing applies professionally when you're in the interviews, when you're talking about what you can bring to a business. It's really about selling your own story and what you offer. So that kind of just ties it back kind of to the entrepreneurship side as well.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. And then go ahead, Kyle.
I was going to say, and building on what both of the gentlemen said, from the juice might be all the same, but like Ben just said, from a marketing perspective, it's what kind of story can I tell about this product? What is going to make this product stand out from every other gin on the shelf, from every other red on the shelf? So knowing what your angle is, what your story is, what's unique about it, like Dwight said, understanding doing the research in the industry, the research in that category. Why is yours better than the bottle next to it? And then kind of like I think Dwight mentioned it initially, having the consistency or like showing up. So kind of doing that legwork and doing the show and prove before. So when you come to the table, you can say, "Oh, I've got a following in these 3 markets. Like I'm doing you a favor by coming and asking to put my stuff into your stores, right?" But again, having that, being able to sell that and not just kind of lay back on it's the best in the business. It might be the best in the business, but if I have to invest more money into, creating a story, creating branding, creating a personality to stand out in front of this product, then that might make me weigh, that product differently against against another product, and that goes for you as the person as well in a job search. So go ahead, Dwight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it
and
sounds like personal branding helps a lot with just your level of confidence, just period.
1000%, Tasha. I mean, I think, having charisma and having a personality, being authentic is also key. And I think those types of individuals really go far, especially in our business. They have to be able to be great storytellers. I can give you a specific example that relates to Juneteenth, and I won't name names, but we had a supplier that came in for that day. And I think each one of the suppliers, Ben, Kyle, they had a mission. When they show up at a Total Wine headquarters, right, or what we call the store support center, they wanted to talk to specific people. They wanted to show their brand in a specific kind of way, and sit down and crunch numbers and tell people why they needed to be in 271 stores across the nation. Certain people were able to do that. Great. Other people maybe not as well. I can tell you that one specific producer, one specific supplier, spent about an hour with a couple of our buyers, and she is, bubbly. She has a personality, she has a story, she knows her brand to the fullest. And after that meeting, we were able to expand her to a winery partnership, winery direct type of partnership with our company. And before, she was barely showing up in any of our stores in the way that she needed to, or the way that she had been in other retail partners. So when you show up, and you have these opportunities, you have this platform, you have to deliver, right? And you have to be intentional and you have to be persistent. Um, don't give up, be very, very thoughtful in the approach, and know who to connect with. And I think because this person specifically connected with myself, connected with Kyle, connected with Ben, connected with, one of the store managers in Texas, for example, she got far. And that matters.
Right.
And I
Right.
think, Dwight mentioned, having the charisma, having that personality. I know that doesn't come natural for everyone. And so I think in kind of storytelling for yourself and creating this personal brand, I think when you put something down on paper or when you establish something, it's almost like a script, and you can continue to recite that script and build confidence behind, this is who I am. And sometimes it's hard for me to express that in moment, but if I know that I just have to say these three things in my 30-second elevator pitch, that makes me more comfortable, more confident. And once you get your foot in the door, then, once you start to build those relationships, you feel more comfortable, the true you, is able to shine. So I don't want anybody to think that, hey, if you weren't born as an extrovert, that, all hope is lost kind of thing. But there are things that you can do to still build that awareness, that storytelling, around yourself or your brand that will help you help you advance.
Right. I'm
How
glad
many people, sorry, Tasha.
No, I was just going to say, just to piggyback on what Kyle said, I'm glad that both you and Kyle brought that up, because that's a big issue for Black women in the corporate space or in the entrepreneur space. They always talk about likability. And so the narrative is always, why is it that we are always kind of judged by whether or not we have the skill set to be leaders in the workplace or owners in the workplace? Why is likability always factored into that equation? And so I'm glad that, Kyle, you acknowledge that you don't have to be an extrovert, and you don't have to feel like because you're not the bubbly person walking around the office or walking around the business, that's going to hinder you from advancement. There are other ways that you can make your skill set shine. And again, that's where the personal branding comes in. You have to be intentional about that. But there are other ways where we don't have to feel like we have to be someone other than ourselves in order to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think Ben hit on it where he's like, I'm not the one that's outgoing, whatever. I let my work speak for itself. I think that is also an important part of it too, and owning that you aren't the bubbly whatever. Like I think being able to state, hey, look, I'm a straight shooter. I'm gonna tell you how it is. This is my management style. This is my work style. But when we work on a project together, you're going to ask for me every single time because you know that I'm going to get it done, or I'm going to give you the best, creative output, or, and so again, it's, I think also establishing that network of folks who can relate or do respect that. I think of one of my managers, senior manager, a woman who, started in the stores, came and worked her way up, and she is not a people person, and she manages a team of 9, and it's hard for her every day to put on that smiley face, but everybody knows that if she walked out the door, she's taking 7 of those people with her, because wherever she's going next, they're going to follow behind her because she gets it done, she does it right, she trains, she develops. But if you say, hey, I want you to go sit in front of this team of executive leaders, that's not who she is. So her brand is I am a technical problem solving project manager and I develop people. And that, you'll see that on her LinkedIn profile as her,
Mhm.
Personal statement. And that, so when she walks in the door or walks into those interviews, people know this is what I'm getting. Like, this person is skill set oriented. Is this somebody who I want to try to build those other interpersonal skills with, or do I need somebody to come in and do the job and show me results or move the needle? So I think owning that, and again, like you just said, not trying to be something that you're not, is important, and that may not fit in every space, and you go and look for that next space till you find that right fit.
Right.
I think when it comes to personal brand as well, all things well said, Kyle and Ben, you got to know your why, and also where you came from and be able to articulate that, pretty clearly. How many people on the call right now can say how they got to this seat right now? And how many times have you told that story, right? How many times have you practiced that actual speech? That's a part of personal brand. If you can replicate, and the people that are on this call can replicate how you got from point A to point B, from B to C, C to Z, I think you're doing, the work in the right way and really developing yourself. And you see it all the time with these, dynamic, compelling public speakers. They say the same things over and over and over again, but they have a package, right? It's template number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and they use that to make money and build their brands all across the world, right? Consistent and get perfect on that stuff, I think you'll be in a really, really great place. But practice and actually rehearse, know where you came from, and make it as compelling as you possibly can, but also make sure that it's real, it's authentic, it's relatable, because I think people in general like relatable stories, right? And it's why we connect, to wine. It's why we connect to spirits, when we know where it came from, and how it was grown, and the vineyard dog and all those types of things. Like, it matters. It makes a significant difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So now that we have created this personal brand, now let's take it a step further in how do we use this personal brand and this value system to network ourselves. People always say, oh, you have to create a network, you need to network, but no one ever really kind of gives you a roadmap of, one, who's my primary target audience for that? Is it internal people? Is it the people that I work with? Is it external? Should I be out, in the same industry, but getting to know people who work for other companies within my same industry? Can you guys kind of break it down and guide us a little bit about, how does one develop a networking roadmap?
Tasha, can I insert a question
Sure.
to the question? And I want to engage the group on this. Um, why are you here tonight? Why'd you show up on this specific meeting? What you
Anyone?
want to get out of this?
Any volunteers to answer?
You ain't got to take your camera on.
Or you can throw it in the group chat. Well, I feel like most people probably join to, you know, gain knowledge about the topics and to, increase their skill set in personal branding and networking.
Yeah.
I think the first step obviously is showing up in spaces like this, joining those professional groups or those enthusiast groups that may not always look
Any
like
kind of
you,
professional
right?
association,
Say
any
again.
kind of professional association.
Professional organization for sure. Yep. Attending, like Dwight said, attending those events, supporting those events, when you go to those events, being a active participant in those events, right? You never know who's watching from the wings, when you ask that, really great question about, finance or about supply chain or something like that, that somebody's like, oh man, that was a really good question. I never thought about that, or I have that problem. Like Dwight said, doing your research so that when you're in those spaces, with you're interested in supply chain and you know that Ben is going to be on this call tonight, and so you've got your questions lined up, because you've done the research on how to get bottles from port to store, and so doing the research, understanding, like Dwight said, mapping out what having a goal. Where do you want to go? What are you trying to get out of the industry? Is it just, hey, I want to work for a retailer in the wine industry because I like to sell wine? Great. Okay, there's what are those companies? Is it Costco? Is it Bevmo? Is it Total Wine? Is it Myers? Is it Publix? Whatever it is. How do you get yourself into those circles? And some of those circles may not just be, oh, I want to go talk to the buyers or the buying team. It may be talking to the store associate. It may be spending time developing those relationships at the store level. It may be developing the relationships with suppliers who that are on those shelves. Hey, I know that such and such is speaking at this engagement. I'm going to go and network with people in this circle who are here to hear this person speak, and that can branch out to other parts of that person's network that might get you where you're going. I think I told the story last time we were on. My mother was a librarian, hated being in front of the public, but every time she went to work, she had to, engage with people every day, coming in asking where books were. And later in life, we would get on an elevator in some borough of New York City, and a 10-second elevator ride, and she would leave that elevator ride with 2 numbers, a recommendation for a restaurant, when the next train, how to get here to here. And I used to hate, like, why is she always talking to everybody? But that was her brand, is that she's still to this day talkative, right? And so I kind of took that to say, hey, when I'm in these spaces, I'm going to talk to everybody. I'm just ask questions. Hey, this is me. And like Dwight said, my story might be the same for all of those different people, but it will connect with those different people in different ways. Maybe this person is a parent, or this kid, their kid is also playing soccer, or they're also from the area, or they lived in Atlanta too. And so, just developing those kind of organic conversations just by talking. Again, I know that everybody's not outgoing or extrovert like that. Sometimes you got to push through, but yeah.
Kamiko,
Kamiko,
see
I think Kamiko you can unmute. She wanted to add something.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to answer the question that you had asked. So me personally, I work in tech full time. I do program management, strategy, etc. So I'm trying to figure out a way. I know there's a definite way that I could use those skills to translate into the wine industry. And so that was kind of my insight to gain from the call. And I've sent all 3 of the panelists, I've sent you guys LinkedIn requests. But yeah, I'm just figuring out, like, in the future, what do I want to do in the wine industry? And I know that, like, I have a background in account management, customer, customer relations, having those, conversations, etc. So that is why I'm here.
I love that, Kamiko. And it kind of goes to the point I wanted to make, is that what do you want to get out of the time spent? Right? What do you want to get out of the time spent? We're here. It feels one way, but it's really 2 ways. What you just did, Kamiko, is you put us on to what you do, who you are, what your brand is, what your expertise is, what your background and experience may be. And that's going to raise an eyebrow to other people in this space, raise an eyebrow to potential hiring managers, right? It's always going to be 2 ways. There are things that you can give to the world, and there are things that you can get out of the world. Always understand that. You have a gift. Know your worth. That's important. Tia, I see your hand.
Yeah. I think Tia has a comment as well. Hi, Tia.
Hi, how are you? I look a mess, so I don't want to come on, but I'll come on. Oh, my daughter did this. Ignore that. But I was just going to answer the question as well. For me, I own a wine brand, Roman Clark Wines, and I am just getting it out there,
Yeah,
market. Yes.
back up. What's the name of the brand? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Wait, let me maybe take you off. Wines.
Roman Clark. Okay. Copy.
Can you hear me, Kobe? Because sometimes my earphones may act up.
We can hear you, Tia.
To make sure. But yes, it's Roman Clark Wines, and it's a legacy wine brand. It's named after my son. And as I said, I am just starting to get the brand out there. For me, I started vowing to do things that were more fulfilling to me. My background is in project management, but I managed clinical trials previously. So it's a new space for me. And I think for me, what I wanted to get out of the call was learning how to properly brand, personal branding. I am an outgoing person, so I can get out there, I can talk, but doing it effectively, networking effectively, because as I'm starting to see as I get out more, I can meet 20 people, connect, right there in that space, but then following up and getting something out of that connection, it may not always happen, or it might happen with one person from that. So, and I know that's just kind of the game of networking, but how to target, like starting out initially, what do I want to put my focus on that will give me the results that I'm looking for. So that was, I guess, my reason for coming tonight, just to kind of get some more insight about that.
And thank you, Tia. One of the things I just kind of want to expand actually on points that both you, Tia, and I think Kamiko made. One of the things that, Dwight, Kyle, and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and when we thought about networking, one of the key things was making sure that you can identify, right, the rooms that you should be in. Those rooms are going to look different, right? Like, you being on the kind of the supplier track, and Kamiko being on maybe the tech side, right? Like, you may not have any interest in being in like Afrotech or something like that. It may not be as much value there for you. Whereas there might be some shared experiences like tonight, right, where both of you can get insight and networks or network a little bit more, right, with those that you can gain from. And so I think that identifying the right space is step one. That's the first thing I think about. I'm very one of the other things I wanted to kind of call out that Kamiko did mention is that LinkedIn, it's like one of the biggest rooms that is out there, right? When you talk about connecting with others. I know there's a lot of noise out there, so to speak, where there's a lot of people like reaching out kind of day to day, but you can also be very intentional in connecting with the right people throughout that. But just keep in mind that that's also another tool when it comes to putting your brand out there, right? You control the narrative, you control what people see, you can control where you direct people from there, and so think about how you can leverage that. You can also use it as a research tool to understand what others may be doing, what's working for them. And so just think about, how you can also leverage some of the things that are out there. And I know some Dwight, Kyle might have some thoughts around some strategies there for how you craft that image. But just know they're like identifying the right spaces, be it physical or digital, right, is definitely what I feel to be the first step.
Well said. And I think, you're not going to hit the connection every single time. You're not always going to hit a grand slam. And so you start to get comfortable with being told no, but also saying no yourself to certain opportunities that come across your desk, right? Not everything is for you. A Total Wine, for example, may not be for everybody to start. You may start at a Vino, right? A boutique wine bar or something like that. And that's cool. That's good for the moment. Also, the no is not always no, never. It's no, not right now, right? So don't be discouraged by, some of those negative answers that you may get in the moment. And a lot of times it's just because you have a queue of 800 other suppliers or 800 other applicants, for a role ahead of you, and they just haven't necessarily dedicated the time or allocated the time to get to what you have to offer. It doesn't mean that what you have to offer is not of value, right? So never be discouraged by that kind of thing. Again, be consistent and persistent and learn to package and finesse, what you have in a different way, right? And it's something that I come across in my day-to-day on a regular basis. Not all of my pitches, to my peers or to executives in the organization, get across the finish line. And so have I packaged a couple of things that I've said before in a different way and got across the finish line? Yes. You just have to really stay positive and optimistic, and know who you are and what you're working towards.
I think also kind of piggybacking on what Ben just mentioned, and I guess not just LinkedIn, but I think Tia, one of your original questions of like once I've made those connections, like what happens after that? I think when you cast a wide net, right? Let's say you talk to 10 people and 5 of them, reach back out. What are you looking for from those 5 people, and how do you nurture those relationships? And so if one person says, hey, I do wine tastings for groups of, whatever, I'd love to have you come in. Like Dwight said, be consistent, follow up on those things, see those things through. When you make those unique connections, when you're reaching out on LinkedIn, there's the scatter shot thing where I'm just going to go and look for anybody that has buyer in his or her name and add them as a friend, right? And so when that person accepts, like, okay, great, there's another wine brand who's asking to connect. Now what? So what is that next conversation? And so being able to manage that as a mother, as a full-time working person, you may have to start small and say, I'm going to hit 5 people up a week, and out of those 5 people, whoever accepts, I'm going to nurture that, keep that seat warm and understand what it is that I'm looking for or looking to connect with them on, and continue to nurture and build that relationship, and that can branch and blossom into other things. I think also on social, on LinkedIn, it's also supporting those other brands, or as you're building your profile, let's say on LinkedIn, it's putting up the content that again sets you apart from every other wine brand. It's telling that story, the Roman Clark story. It's putting something there that is shareable, so that other folks in your network can say, hey man, look at this brand that's up and coming, you guys need to check this out. Or hey, look at this brand that I connected with and discovered over the weekend, you guys should check it out. And you should be doing the same thing for other peers or friends in the industry, because that also brings people to your page, right? So there are things that even if you can't make a hey, we talk on the phone every other week kind of connection, there are things that every time you post something, somebody is reposting that or spreading your brand to their network of people as well.
Yeah, you said also, I'm not picking on you. I know we're harping on what you said, but it's because you responded, right? You didn't just say Roman Clark was a brand. What did you say before the brand? You said it was a legacy brand, all right? There's a legacy brand. And that's not this is not the first time you've used that term, correct? I think you're on mute.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Got you now.
Okay, I think it's my earphones. That's not the first time I said that.
Right. So you're using words intentionally to get your point across. You're focusing on telling your story specifically. And now I want to know more about it.
Yeah.
I want to know what kind of wine you produce, right? I want to know where it comes from. I want to know where you live, why you decided on Roman Clark as a name for your brand. You know what I'm saying? Just
Yes.
those little things make a significant difference. You could have said, I have a 1. And we would have sat here like, oh, yeah, everybody got 1.
Everybody, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to look the shit up and I'm going to try to figure it out because, you know, I'm intrigued. You said something that was more compelling than just, you know, the flat line.
Gotcha.
I also think that it's important, and you guys let me know your thoughts on this, that networking, you know, don't get discouraged because there is sort of an art to it as well. And it takes time to kind of develop your networking style. And every networking opportunity or interaction is not going to yield a connection. And it's important not to get discouraged by that, because you may, your first couple of times trying, you know, you may go to a industry event and decide, okay, I'm going to introduce myself to 5 people before I leave. You know, a lot of those interactions might feel weird, and that's okay. You know, but as long as you're practicing and trying to develop that skill, and you don't have to be perfect at it. I know for me, I'm not necessarily the person that may walk up to someone, but networking is 2 ways. I love being the person that is the conduit or the middleman connecting other people. So networking is kind of like, you know, a sphere of things. It's not just about that initial interaction. There's a lot of ways, you know, social networking is really big right now, but that looks very different in different circumstances. So it doesn't always have to be, oh, hi, my name is, it doesn't have to. So I want people to know that, you know, don't get discouraged if that's not your personality. There's a lot of other avenues and ways to network, just like they mentioned with LinkedIn and things like that. And you don't own the relationship. I think that's important too. You know, I think sometimes in networking, when you're building that networking tree, you know, you don't necessarily own the fruits of that tree. Networking is a selfless thing. It's something that you go into not expecting a return, you know, because then it's no longer authentic. You know, so I would say if you're not genuinely interested in making connections, then that might not be the space for you.
Have y'all ever been to a conference and seen someone open up the floor and they ask a question and the question really doesn't really like land to anybody in the space? They're like, why did they even open their mouth? Like, I don't even know what they're saying. But you know, you've seen that, but it's a part of branding, right? Because they got that level of visibility. They were willing to take that risk, right? I'm not saying to do that, but they essentially got some attention as a result of that effort. And so, you know, some people will continue to do it. And sometimes it's the same people over and over and over and over again. But I think in general, it's best practice to make sure that you ask a good question. And I think, you know, Fawn Weaver, especially with Uncle Nearest, she's one that actually says it because it happens so often, right? People get up there and they just, you know, ask stupid questions, so to speak. You know, she's like, I need a good question. And that goes far, right? Yeah. Talika, I saw your hand. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. No, I like to put it down too, because you guys, you know, you guys giving some good information there. I don't want to mess up the flow. But what Tahira says a lot is that what's for you doesn't, you know, won't pass you by, you know, and, you know, we always have to remember the divinity in that. And as somebody who has hit quite a bit of obstacles throughout her journey, and everything that have manifested after that has been quite divine in ways that I couldn't fathom, even when you don't have it figured all out. But to you gentlemen's latest point, you know, you have to do something you've never done to have something you've never had. And not to say that every introvert has to automatically become an extrovert in order to receive their blessings by any means. You know, to everyone's point, that, you know, other individuals will gravitate towards you at any divine time, even if you cannot initiate some of those conversations on your own. And it usually just, you know, falls in line as far as what your needs are. And I'm sorry I didn't initially hear that other question because my partner was blending something over here. But you know, I was here for you guys' first part, you know, a few months back. And, you know, as somebody who has been like knee deep in corporate America for some time and actually didn't get to invest in myself until, you know, until the pandemic hit, you know, and I had to be furloughed to even fathom not receiving a paycheck every 2 weeks because I've just been working since 12 years old, you know, even in college and things of that sort. So that security, you know, is something that you always need, even when you're simultaneously investing in yourself or pursuing entrepreneurial goals. And you guys, you know, really poured into us in regard to, you know, not necessarily having to, you know, take a pay cut or figuring out what it is that you have invested for 10, 20 years into whatever industry and how it is that those, you know, same skills and your talent will be valuable in the industry that we all love and are passionate about. You know, and as somebody who just literally recently resigned from my role and into another one, and the day of my resignation, they like, hey, we'll give you another 20K. I'm like, well, you could have gave me that a couple weeks ago when I told you
Right.
that I wasn't really happy, and now you know found 20K overnight.
Right.
You know, and it's like to your point about just understanding your value in some cases, you know, especially as Black people in this capitalistic society, we're like scared to ask for things because we almost look at everything as being a blessing and we don't want to shake, you know, shake things up, right? And with that said, you know, I in a real way since the last call, I'm like, how can I maneuver in this and also stay into my tax bracket? And unfortunately, you know, my new role isn't, you know, in wine as I simultaneously not only work on my introduction to sommelier certification, but also build my wine brand and counteract some of those obstacles I previously spoke of, but really see how it is that I can really be of value into some of the, you know, the infrastructures that you guys speak of that doesn't suppress us as much as some other job that we may not be passionate about. So to Kamiko's point, I too have slid into your LinkedIn DM a few weeks back, and I'm you know follow up on that, you know, and see, you know, I know you guys mentioned initially, I think you were going to open another like 600 locations within the next couple of years, I want to say.
600.
No, did I exaggerate on that?
We'll be
200
we'll be at
right?
300. We'll be at 300. We're at 279. We'll be at 300 probably by 2026.
Okay, maybe I added another zero to that. Maybe it was another 60 or so, you know? But I know you guys had some more, you know, coming along, and even you were even talking to some real estate folks on that call saying, hey, you know, we may need your expertise to even vet where it is that those locations are going to be or what have you. So yeah, I just want to kind of, you know, I just wanted to touch on that and just, you know, pour into the team that was on the call. And I thank you gentlemen again.
That's love. That's love. I think, you know, like you said, Talika, don't get tired of digging. You know what I'm saying? Like keep digging, keep uncovering stuff. Like there will be opportunities where you don't necessarily have to take a step back. And I think, you know, to another point you made, I think I started doing this Dave Ramsey thing. He said, live like no one else, so later you can live like no one else. You feel that? Like you have to take L's up front first. You know, the whole envelope system and stuff like that. That doesn't feel all good. It's a little gritty. You know what I mean? It's not glam. You sitting in the house when everybody else at the club or at brunch spending $250 like this past weekend with me, right? But later, 5 years from now, right? I'm gonna win and I'm gonna live like none of y'all living as a result of my sacrifice kind of up front, right? And all the digging and researching and saving and intentionality that I kind of put forth. So you know, it's important. You will get there. You know what I'm saying? And I think, you know, I am an example of that. I just started in wine in 2018, 2019. I had no idea that I'd be in this position right now in 2024, but I kind of did. You know what I mean? Because I was working towards that kind of thing. But I surrounded myself with people. People came in my network and they looked out. They gave me a wink. They gave me a handshake, all that kind of stuff. But I was ready when the opportunity presented itself.
Yeah, I try to respect the pivot too, you know, to you guys' point and look at the divinity in it. Because outside of even of that, like for example, like my labels, they come to life using augmentation, celebrating revolutionary Black people. And it's some folks that ain't been looking the best in the news these days that I would have thought about putting on the front of my bottle, and there goes my brand, right? And it's like taking a step back and figuring out how much you even want to invest in someone's likeness, as far as even my model in that regard, in addition to all the things I've also learned since I started that brand by way of this connection. And, just, speaking, to Shay and Sarah, and just really trying to iron out, what it is that I was doing when I was a one-woman show versus the networking, to you guys' point, that I have developed, and how it is that slow walking it and seeing why it is that my journey has maneuvered compared to where it is that I initially saw that blueprint going. So I really try to look at it as not even like a setback, but more so trusting the process and respecting the journey. But go ahead, Ben. I'm sorry, that's all you want to use, sir.
I'm sure you got dirt under your fingernails and it's gritty, right? It ain't easy. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, one thing I did want to just kind of point out for everyone, because Dwight's not going to do it here, right? But if you heard, what he just mentioned, what he just brought up, right? He just got started in wine in 2018, 2019. I didn't know that about him, by the way, but having that passion for it, that love for it, and then also pairing that, right, with his knowledge, his understanding of DE&I, like diversity and inclusion, and all the different pathways there. He's able to marry that up, right, and create an opportunity. And so it was about doing that work, having that skill set, being able to speak to and present that skill set to others. Dwight's role did not exist at Total Wine. Let me just put before, he got here, right? So it's one of those things where there's so much value created in the skill sets that he had already created for himself that he was able to sell that, to Total Wine. So just another nugget there, kind of in what Dwight just mentioned.
And to his last point, he was ready when the opportunity presented itself, right? So being able to step in and say, yep, I know what I bring to the table. I know what I can offer you. I know, this is what the roadmap looks like. Trust me to do this. Here's some examples of other people who have trusted me to do this. And oh, by the way, I also know wine and I know the business, right? And so, I think before he got there, the executives around the halls were, moving through these meetings. They're like, oh yeah, we found somebody. Oh yeah, and he's a Somm. Like that was almost bigger than the DEI piece. Like he knows the business, and he can, help us launch these DEI efforts. And so yes, being ready for that moment. I think it was just mentioned around that sphere of networking. Ben mentioned it earlier about being a connector and being able to help others within your network, right? Like it's not always going to be about you. And those organic connections will eventually come back around to fruition, or the fruits. And so being able to advocate for others in your network is also super important. It's not a one-way thing where you're just looking to get out of somebody, something. It's, oh, I know this person is a graphic designer. I'm going to connect it. I heard you were looking for a graphic designer. Check out this person, and this person. One of them should stick. Or, oh, I know this person does learning and development. I'm going to introduce you to this person at this company, this person. And you never know when that comes back around of, hey, thanks for getting me in the door. This position just came up. Come on over. Or, hey, you know what? I was at a wedding last week and I met somebody who's a buyer for such and such. Love to put your product in front of them. I sent them your profile, follow up with this person. So you never know when that will come back around.
Yeah. What do you want to do with that privilege, right? Once you get that seat, once you quote unquote feel like you made it, right? What are you doing with it? How are you putting other people on? How do you get other people in the same seat that you're also sitting in, right? That's some of the same shit that Tahir has been doing, for years now, right? In the game, right? All our president chapters, our chapter presidents, they're doing that same shit, right? They're trying to figure out how to put other people on, how to expand their footprint. And I think, we've done a good job. Without that representation in our roles, we probably wouldn't be able to be as successful as we are, not only as a business or as a people. So I think it's super important to really be clear-eyed as to what your goals are, not only for yourself, but for other people once you get that seat. and you achieve at the highest level.
Absolutely. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap up? Any other questions? Check the chat. Well, thank you guys again. This has been another great session. And just a couple things that I just kind of wrote down as you all were talking. You know, the preparation aspect, like they always say, always be prepared, always be in a process of preparation because you don't know when your moment may arise. Communication is important. It doesn't matter what your strategy, your personal brand, none of that stuff matters if you cannot articulate it to others. And then superpower, you know, everyone on this call, everyone has a superpower. So use whatever it is that you're good at, whether, you know, it's communication, networking, connecting others, being, you know, some people are just the power of empathy, you know, they bring that to the table. That's needed a lot in the workplace or in business. So whatever your superpower is, amplify that and promote that as part of your personal brand. So, and that's all that I have. Thank you guys again, and thank everyone so much for coming out this evening.
Appreciate y'all. Thanks for the
Thank you all for
opportunity.
having
Thank
us
you all.
again.
All right,
See
until
y'all again
next
soon.
time.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.